Thanks so much for tuning in. This will be the April 2026 council meeting and council briefing update. A pretty extensive amount of information in both of those meetings. I'll, as always, try to be a little brief, but if there's something in particular that you're interested in or that you think affects you and you need more details, please feel free to reach out. Starting off, we had a packed house, standing room only, primarily due to the guests that we had. Presented a check to Acadiana Veterans Alliance. This is from Brunch and Beats. This is money generated from the cook-off and from some tasting bracelets that were sold. And so that's a great organization that's been donated to several times over the years from Brunch and Beats. We then had a really good turnout from 4-H students. Quarterly, we recognize 4-H students who live in the Carencro area, who have done something kind of above and beyond, and so great turnout there. We recognize the Carencro Middle Leaders of the Month. That was both the staff and students, which is always great to see, those people that are coming up and doing great things there. And then we really special presentation or proclamation for Miss Vanessa Knott. Miss Vanessa Knott was teaching at Carencro Middle when I was there. She's moved around a bit and has been the principal at Carencro High and done a really, really fabulous job there. She is going to retire at the end of this year, and so a great turnout there from her staff and family as she received a proclamation from the city. We then heard some updates from the department heads. Water, gas, and sewer, those departments remain really busy. Just from a work order and 811 locations that they have to do, really busy, but lots going on there. Great things happening at the park. I've spent a lot of time at the park in the last couple of weeks with my family. I'm really pleased with how things are going there. I've commented on that. The new concession stand's going great. The food is excellent every time I've had it. Things are very clean, well run. There's always staff moving around, cleaning things. The bathrooms have been really clean. So I think good things happening at Parks and Recreation. Got an update from Andy Sellers with Fits to Maker. I'm still pushing the administration to try to get every penny that we can from the contractor who took literally years to finish up some sewer lift stations. I really appreciate the administration and the city attorney. They are doing that. They are seeking what I believe is owed to us. And so more to come. I suspect it'll be a long, drawn-out legal process, and there will be some compromise that will need to be reached. But, all we can do is try, and I think we're doing that. In terms of the financial reports, those continue to track in the right direction, meaning we're seeing slow but steady growth in the sales tax base. That tells me that we're not losing businesses. If anything, likely just from cost of living, things are increasing. And no, that's not good for me or my family or you. It is good in the sense that we're not staying stagnant. I've said many times here that it's my belief that you're either growing or you're receding. Nobody stays the same in terms of a community. And so growth is good. As I've always said, it has to be slow, measured, and with a good compass. We have to do it smartly. But I think we're doing those things, and we're continuing to see slow growth. So really good there. We had 9 resolutions. I'll go through them. The first one was a restriping and a resurfacing of Gloria Switch Road. There will be some dollars here from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, and there'll be some local dollars. I believe this is going to be Gloria Switch from Moss Street to University, although exactly where I may be mistaken on. This is a longer term project. This is essentially us giving our support for it. These type of projects with the Metropolitan Planning Organization often take years. They're kind of longer term, kind of more foresighted projects. So don't expect to see anything this year, maybe even not next, but we are starting the process, giving our support. That did pass. The next was a memorandum of understanding between the city of Scott and the city of Carencro. This was for a voting poll for early voting that would have been housed at the library in Scott. Scott would have paid, I believe, $30,000 a year for a couple of years, and we would have paid $15,000 a year would have been our cost. Initially, there was some talk about having the early voting location in Carencro, of which I think the council would have been much more on board with, but our library, as most of you know, is undergoing a major renovation, and so we can't do it. The council did elect to not pass this ordinance. We, I think, collectively felt that the MLK Center on Willow is very convenient. It's usually fairly empty. You can get in and out of there, and it's just as close for most of our residents as Scott, and we don't have to pay for it. So, I do appreciate the mayor bringing this to us, and I appreciate Scott attempting or willing to do a cooperative endeavor with us, but I don't think it's right for our citizens at this time, so that did not pass. We then amended the budget for the Public Works Department by $100,000 for tower lights. So these are lights that are going to light up the water tower downtown. I was very on the fence about this when I was back and forth. The $100,000 is not going to totally come from us. $64,000 of it is a grant. $36,000 will be our cost. This is one of those beautification or quality of life things that are always difficult. But I think it's not the job of the council. I don't think I was elected to only fill potholes and fix water lines. Things like Parks and Recreation and things like Macrodee's show and senior bingo and lighting of the water tower, when done with some good restraint and utilizing and leveraging grants and those kind of things, I do think it's something that's important for the city of Carencro. And I'm overall happy with what I've heard about these lights. I think you're going to like them once they're done, and so that did pass unanimously. Next, we accepted an intergovernmental agreement between LCG and Carencro. LCG, the mayor president in particular, receives some opioid funds. She and she alone are responsible for dispersing those to the municipalities. The things that they can be used on are very, very specific. And so she is going to give a portion of that money to the Carencro Police Department for crime-fighting cameras. I'm maybe the biggest proponent outside of the police department of those crime-fighting cameras. Happy to discuss those at length with anybody, but they have proven themselves useful time and time again. More crimes have been solved than you can imagine using the cameras that we have. So this is going to expand that program a little bit, and so we did approve that cooperative endeavor. The next one was another one I was a little on the fence about, and I know Taylor was on the fence about, and I think we all were. And so it was a amendment of the budget in the amount of $85,000. This is coming out of the 2016 sales tax fund, which is dedicated primarily to sewer and then also to police and fire. These dollars are going to be used for two side-by-sides. Yes, they cost $85,000 for two of them, $40-something thousand each. I did do some research, and that is true. These are going to be street legal so that we can take them out and do other functions and tasks as needed. And the alternative is, with the size of the sewer plant being built on Post Road, one option would be to put a pickup truck there and drive a pickup truck around, which will likely tear up the property and the truck more than being able to divide people up, put them in side-by-sides, and move them around. The Public Works team really felt like we needed three, or feel like we need three, but we'll get two for now, and we'll go from there. These are the kind of tough decisions that we have to make, and I think Buster Broussard does an excellent job, and I do think he's a good steward of our money. I've seen him save us money time and time again on things that he can fix and do. And so when he asks for something, I'm inclined um, to side with him and approve those things when possible. The next item we talked about quite a bit. It's the Lafayette Disability Awareness Committee, who's going to come into Lafayette and help us and look at things that we are doing or could do for the disabled community. And I think anything like that is good. It won't cost us anything. So more to come, and we'll see how that goes. The next line item was kind of a tricky one, in my opinion. I guess a lot of these were. It was a resolution to amend the capital outlay fund by $225,000 for the city hall renovations. We've gotten a substantial portion of the money required, and we actually have enough to do what has to be done for the city hall renovations. If you haven't listened to this video update in a while, we are making a major renovation to City Hall. Essentially, we are out of space at City Hall. That building is from the 70s. And then it's also very unuseful, or it's difficult to use, and it's not user-friendly. The majority of the offices on the east side of the building are only accessible through the council meeting chambers and are really not at all accessible to the public. There's no elevator, and so it's difficult for many people to get upstairs to any of the offices. There's some security concerns about people's ability to kind of walk through the building. So it's not ADA compliant. There's various reasons why it needs to be updated, but it does, and we've secured those funds from the state. There are a few what I call options. There are 3 of them. Some of them have to do with redoing an office that needs some interior work done. Some of it has to do with external landscaping and that sort of thing. We don't necessarily have enough from the state yet to do that portion. And to take it out to bid, we have to have those funds secure. So this resolution secured those funds, but the council will have an option to use those options or to not once the bids come back, depending on how they come back. And furthermore, we feel pretty confident that we're going to get this money from the state. We just don't have it yet. And so this, in my opinion, was more of a formality. It's a state law that we have to have the funds available and budgeted before we go out to bid. And so that's what this did, and it did pass unanimously. The next was also a formality, in my opinion. It amended the agreement with Mr. Lynn Guidry, who's the architect for the City Hall renovations, to include all the things that need to be done. Again, really a formality there. The next item, the next resolution was probably the hottest item on the agenda, which I did not anticipate, and I'll explain why here. So, as part of the sewer plant off of Post Road, let me just kind of give a broad overview again for those of you who maybe haven't listened in a while or haven't heard about this. This is the sewer plant off of Post Road is going to be by far the biggest project in my lifetime, and I suspect in my kids' lifetime. It's a $50 million plus project that's been worked on for about 15 years. Currently, we have 2 sewer treatment plants, one off of Manola Road behind Prejean's Restaurant, and then one off of Post Road. Those are over capacity and outdated. Through the foresight of previous Mayor Glenn Brasso, he began redirecting sewer lines and lift stations toward Post Road with a kind of a long-term goal of getting one upgraded sewer treatment plant that can last us for many years. Fortunately, our current mayor, Charlotte Clavier, has continued that project, and we've put in lift stations and lines, and we've got everything ready to go at Post Road, and we've secured the funding. As always, various funding sources. Some are grants, some are loans, various things, but we're going to be building a massive sewer treatment plant off of Post Road that should take us far into the future. This resolution was a minuscule portion of that bigger plan that's going on for a long time, and it asks the council to approve them to pour concrete at night. If you've been around for a while and heard these, you know that buildings like Amazon and Super One and Walmart require nighttime concrete pours, these big commercial structures. The sewer plant is no different. There's a couple of reasons. One big one is that the consistency of the concrete is paramount. Um, if those concrete trucks have to get stuck in morning traffic, or their time from the plant to the site is prolonged, that concrete is ruined. And we're talking about many, 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 many loads of concrete over multiple days. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, especially in South Louisiana, especially in the summertime, if it's not poured at night, the heat and the humidity will not allow it to cure properly. And again, this is a $50 million project. And so taking a chance on the foundation is just not worth it. We recognize that there is a potential decrease in quality of life to the residents in that area from having lighting, crews working at night, trucks coming and going. And so we're going to do what we can, as we did with Amazon and others, to minimize those, such as pointing the lights directly onto the slab and not, trying to not have too much light pollution, asking those trucks to turn off their backup beepers when they're backing up so that the noise is somewhat secure. To get to the end of the story, this resolution passed unanimously, and we've done this for multiple other businesses. There were 2 residents who came, and we had previously received a letter, very well organized and written letter with some very legitimate concerns. These residents live off of Briarfield, so their properties back up to the Post Road plant. I really want to commend the mayor. Prior to the meeting, she had the engineer and the professionals working on the plant respond in detail to her letter. Unfortunately, these residents had not received that letter yet, and they were essentially asking the council to answer the questions in real time. I tried a few times to redirect the conversation simply because a response had already been sent to her, so I felt she needed to look at that response and then come back. And the other thing is that the engineer of the project was not there. I can tell you broad strokes of the project. I know the details that I think are important for me as a council member to know, but the details about who performed what environmental analysis and what monitoring by what people is going to happen going forward, those are details that simply I don't know, and we're not going to be able to answer those. And more importantly, this item dealt with a very small portion of the project and really had nothing to do with her broader questions. I do think that those questions deserve an answer. Whether or not she lives in the city limits or not, that does not matter to me. We as the city are potentially impacting her property. Hopefully not at all, but she is concerned that we might, and I think that's a valid concern. So she and the 2 ladies were willing to read the letter, and I believe the mayor committed that if there are more questions, she will be happy to put them on the agenda. We will make sure all the right professionals are there to answer those questions. But it did take some time to kind of get to that point. Of course, they're very nervous and upset. They've got homes there, which I understand they've been there for a long time. And so potentially more to come on that conversation. Hopefully the letter that they will receive with our responses will suffice, but if not, there will be more to come there. Let's see here. So then we went to introductory ordinances. There are 2. One of them I think is very straightforward. The other one has had some Facebook chatter, so I'll talk a little more about that one. The first one is Chapter 22. It's an environmental. It dealt with environmental concerns, and it clarified open burning standards with land clearing activities. Really, that was in another section of the code, and so this was brought here to clarify that you are not allowed to open burn, particularly when you're clearing land. So I hadn't got any comments on that one. I think it's very straightforward. I think it'll pass. The next one deals with occupational license standards. I'm going to try to give you as broad of an overview as I can while giving you enough detail, but if you're concerned about this or you've read something on the internet and you want to know more, please let me know. my interpretation as of today, and my mind can change at any point, is that this truly is a clarification. I do not believe that we are expanding the scope of the occupational license. We're certainly not expanding how much people can be taxed. That is statutory in the state revised statutes. The concern on Facebook was that we are going to be able to tax more people than we could now. When I read our current ordinance, I believe we can tax those people now. And so the concern basically is that the clarification that we're trying to make is that people who come into Carencro to do work can be taxed. And really, in my mind and opinion, as we move into the future, things like Amazon delivery and Lyft and Uber and Walmart delivery, those people may or may not have a brick and mortar store in Carencro. Nonetheless, they are certainly performing business-like activities here. And I think it's unfair to our mom and pops and our local stores or even our regional stores who don't have that presence to have to pay an occupational tax when some other store from out of town may not. As I read our current ordinance, it has very similar or the same language. It says if business is performed in the city. So I think this ordinance amendment is just looking to clarify and make sure everybody's on the same page. Now, no, I don't necessarily think that if you're a plumber who lives in Opelousas and does a job in Carencro that you will have to now get an occupational license. Again, as the ordinance stands now, I think we could do that because you are performing a business in Carencro, but we don't. First of all, it's impractical. How could we know every person doing business here? Second of all, the point is not to tax every person who is dropping off a bottle of water. The purpose is to create an even playing field and to ensure that each party is paying their fair share of taxes. So, again, I've had some discussions with Mr. Don Chauvin, who has posted that on Facebook. He and I are on a great working relationship, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he has sent me some documentation. I have responded. I think we're going to have some more dialogue and discussion about this, but I feel very good today that this ordinance is a clarification only. I think we're well within our legal right based on the state statute, but I reserve the right to change my mind pending further discussion with him and more thought about it and more reading. But I've gone back through everything, and I'm very confident in where we are with this. I don't think anybody locally is going to see any major change currently in their occupational licenses. Next, we had an ordinance for final adoption. It was an annexation of property on Thoroughbred. There was nobody there for or against. That did pass unanimously. We then had two public hearings. One was for a preliminary and final plat approval for a 310 Cade Road. So it's kind of all the way on the back of Cade Road. This property has been talked about being developed a few times in the past. There were a few residents there who spoke. I think everybody's concerns were answered. They are certainly within the development code, at least as it stands now, to do what it is they want to do, and so this one did pass. And then we had a single-family residential dwelling. So this was Pelican Point, or the Bechet subdivision. We've talked about this numerous times before. They're just in their next phase, and so they're coming to get that approval. There was nobody at the meeting to speak in opposition, and so that did pass as well. Thank you for sticking with me. As I mentioned, this was going to be a long one. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.